Okay, so my presentation and lesson is on my mental health challenges. So first, I asked in the lesson, what do they know about post-traumatic stress disorder? And I like this quote. It says, approximately 6% of the U.S. population experiences post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, during their life, with about 3.6% of the U.S. adults affected at any given year. That's pretty significant. It's small, but it is definitely a factor. So what is PTSD? Sorry. Let's go back. Okay. So, PTSD is a mental condition that develops because you've witnessed a scary event or life-threatening event, such as for me, being fired was really significant for me. Fighting in war as well, or if you've experienced rape. PTSD carries a lot of stress, fear, and disruptive systems that can affect our lives. I like this quote. The acute stress response after trauma involves a cascade of central nervous system and neuroendocrine reactions to help people contend with experiencing chronic activation of these symptoms, and which can lead to physical health problems. So basically, your system is always in a state of constant hyperarousal. So your amygdala is constantly firing and it doesn't stop. So that's why you get an increased volume in your anxiety levels. So now, symptoms of PTSD can include nightmares or intrusive memories. For me, it's really fear. I have a lot of dreams about fear. You can avoid the situation or avoid of things that remind you of it. Negative thinking, changes in your physical and emotional reactions, higher anxiety, feelings of fear, shame, anger. Something I struggle with a lot is shame, and especially trouble sleeping. So it can last for several months or even years if without being treated. The body constantly stays in that fight or flight mode. Okay. So then one way to combat it is through cognitive processing therapy. This quote doesn't have to do with cognitive processing therapy, but I thought it was very interesting. It relate more to the next slide that I talk about. It says recent literature supports the use of partial hospitalized and intensive outpatient program to target suicidal ideation in adolescents and young adult populations. So I'm getting a little ahead, but basically, another step in your getting healthy again is to do intensive or partial hospitalization to combat the trauma that you've experienced. I will go into that a little bit later. So what is CPT, or cognitive processing therapy? It is basically challenging those thoughts that you've had about your trauma, and really attacking them and examining them. And it really focuses on stuck points. So the negative beliefs you have in these areas such as safety, trust, control, and self-esteem. I am not quite an expert on CPT yet. I'm still learning as I'm going, but this is kind of the general idea. Is basically you're targeting what your thoughts are stuck on, and changing those thought patterns to something more positive, like having self-compassion. So how do your thoughts get stuck? So I drew a diagram And this is what a normal brain looks like. So you have the thought here, and it goes to your amygdala, which is basically supports your emotions, and then goes to prefrontal cortex, which is your logical side. But in a PTS brain, it changes. The thought goes through and gets stuck. So it stays in your amygdala, which is your hyper state, and shuts off, which then shuts off your logical side. So that's why, like, I've yelled at my director because my prefrontal cortex was turned off, and I was just running on my amygdala, which was my emotions. So that's pretty much what your brain does when you have a traumatic, when you're suffering from trauma. So CPT works by shifting your trauma and worldviews, going through, getting past your stuck points, and changing the feelings on it. Now, as I was talking before, you have, right now I am doing partially hospitalized program. And I like this quote: by the time children are 18 years old, 49% have a disposable mental illness, with a rising numbers of 63% by the age of 25. So that's really staggering. That's a lot of people that have mental health issues. Even though, like, it's very, sometimes I think, not talked about, it's a very high number that people go through. So PHP, let me go through here. What is PHP? So it is a structured daytime treatment for mental health or trauma, where they learn skills and attend therapy twice a week for 8 hours a day for 5 days a week. But what's nice about it is that it is you can stay at home, but also it's one step above going to like a hospital. So you still get to have your freedom by completing a PHP program. So what does PHP entail? It includes individual counseling, group therapy, working on skills, seeing a psychiatrist once a week, and seeing a nurse practitioner once a week as well. And all these combine to help you overcome your trauma. So, but then once you get done with that, you can go to IOP, which is Intensive Outpatient Program, where they have group therapy as well, and one individualized counseling session for 9 hours per week across 3 days. It's very similar to PHP, but they don't go as in depth, but you still learn a lot of skills. And I like this quote: the participants express positive perceptions of the program, structure, and design, emphasizing its individual approach and the inclusion of diverse elements such as a group session, lectures, individual therapy, mindfulness exercises, and physical activities. So people found that it really benefits them to do an IOP program. So I am doing, first I'm tackling my trauma by going to PHP program, and then I am going to an IOP after that. And these are my references, and then that is my presentation.